And we are live. So, welcome to episode 107 of An American Werewolf in New Jersey. I am the American Werewolf. In the house tonight, we've got a bit of a full table, but that's always a good thing. We've got Dustin from the Barrens Hideout podcast.
Thank you for
We've
having
got
me.
Aaron. Not mistaken, man. You're currently recovering from a little COVID-19.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a little bit of a stuffy nose now, but I'm feeling much better than I did 3 days ago.
All right, well, you signed the disclosure that said you won't croak on the live stream, so I'm going to have to hold you to that.
I can't make any promises.
Well, you know, I can just take you out of the stream. He didn't do it on the stream. I took him out of it. We've got Eric from Hey Internet. Eric here.
My pleasure.
As always, good to have you on board. We've got the Gore-Aphobe coming here to hang out and talk a little Sam Raimi tonight. And we've got returning on their first appearance since Gerald's game. We've got the Walk to Cinema podcast, and it's always fun to have them on. So thanks to everyone for joining me. Yeah, it's good to have you on.
Thanks for having me, man.
Always, always. So, 15 minutes ago, I was talking to Walk to Cinema on their show about Personal Shopper, which is like this fucking avant-garde, experimental art suspense film, and I'm like, having such a good time because it's such a good movie, at least to me. And now I'm here talking about Sam Raimi and the Evil fucking Dead. And the last time I talked about the Evil Dead, I was on Walk to Cinema because I covered the first of the three movies. They were covering all three, and they had a different podcast on for each movie. And now, I'm sort of returning the favor begrudgingly because Bill wanted to talk about the Evil Dead. And then I get this huge group together for the Evil Dead, and Bill can't make it. And he'll be here tomorrow because we're doing an Evil Dead double feature. But here we are all the same. Here's my thing. And I guess I'll go around everybody maybe a little bit. Why do you think this movie is so popular? Dustin, let's go round robin. Just 30 seconds, whatever comes it up. Maybe you don't think it's, maybe you don't like it. And you're like, that's fine. There's no wrong answer on this.
Well, I would have to say, I think the reason why this is so popular is because Sam Raimi really kind of pushed the boundaries for indie filmmaking at the time. And you got to remember, this was 81, and it was very low budget. It was just a bunch of friends, and for what he did, for the amount of money and the location and the low amount of people that were on this film, he really set a high bar for everything that kind of came after in the 80s. It starts super somber and kind of low. You kind of guessing like what's going to go on and whatnot, and then it ramps up at the end, and you're just completely blown away, and it sticks with you for like your whole life. At least it has for me. Because the ending is just bonkers.
All right. Aaron?
I think it's just so over the top with like the gore and the special effects, and of course Bruce Campbell, is what sets itself apart, from other movies in its time. But like Dustin said, though, I think it just set the bar really high for like low budget campy movies.
Okay. All right, Eric?
Kind of piggyback on what Dustin said. While it's not my favorite of the, I guess you'll say, four movies counting the remake, I understand where its place in horror movie history is. Sam Raimi pretty much showing what he can do with almost no budget, and it makes a film. He made a film that you'll remember, whether positive or negative, and it leaves an impact.
Okay. Gore, what you got for us? What you think?
It's groundbreaking and it's fun, you know what I mean? And there's also an iconic character that's lasted all the way till now and is even bigger now than he was then. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just a really good time.
Okay. All right. You too?
I think it teeters on the edge of being so bad it's good, where like it still looks good. The acting is still, it's not atrocious, but it ramps up so fast and like it's just crazy at the end that I think people just have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, and it was also really influential for other micro budget directors. So I mean, movies that are influential are always going to last the test of time, even if they're good or not. It's my least favorite of the original three, but I still think it's very much a must watch for horror fans.
I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we got our feet wet a little bit. Let's get it going. We all ready to go?
Yeah, buddy.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah.
Boogie woogie. So, this movie was directed by the great Sam Raimi. And Sam Raimi is still as relevant today as he was in 1981 after this movie was released. Because as we all know, if you're on Twitter at all, Twitter is sort of burning up about the new Doctor Strange movie.
Yep.
Whether you love it or you hate it, everybody's talking about the new Sam Raimi film. Now, my understanding, and I'm only going to touch on this for like 30 seconds, is that within the last 6 weeks of the film, I haven't seen the film. I probably won't. I may wait for it to come out on Disney.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is that within the last 6 weeks, there were almost up to 80% of the film was reshot. So there are already internet rumors starting that there's a Raimi cut laying around somewhere.
Of course. Of course.
But that's more, the suit stepped in and, sort of overrode what it is that he wanted to do, which my understanding happens with a lot of those movies. A lot of the action scenes, I think, in those movies are already set up, written, and scripted by other directors. So no matter who might be directing the film, the action scenes are actually set up by other directors. But that gets away from the larger point, which is that, here we are in 2022, and probably the number one movie in the world is a Sam Raimi film.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not necessarily a fan of this movie, but I respect it. I respect its place in the horror canon. I respect what Raimi essentially did, which was, it almost comes off like a student film in a sense, because Raimi was a student. I think he had just turned 20 by the time he had made this, or at the time that he started filming. What he was able to do, like you all said, in terms of pushing the boundaries, in terms of sensory overload. He's not making Lawrence of Arabia here. He's not making Ben-Hur. He's not making the Ten Commandments that you see on Palm Sunday. He was making a gory horror film that was sort of this, cross between the Three Stooges, because my understanding is the Three Stooges heavily influenced Raimi, and I guess his own vision with all sorts of new camera angles and cinematography that no one had ever seen before. Obviously, I also appreciate the fact that this wasn't one of the movies that came along in the 70s that I thought was part of the Exorcist hangover.
Mm-hmm.
There were lots of movies after The Exorcist, whether it be sequels to The Exorcist or The Omen, or maybe even Amityville Horror and these sorts of things, even though that was based on the DeFeo murders, that were all trying to say, how can we make a movie like The Exorcist? This had none of that feeling.
No, not at all.
It was just, it was completely raw, which, that's something I always respect. It was honest. It wasn't pretentious at all. And it kept ramping up. And kept ramping up and ramping up. And, I think when I talked about it with Walk to Cinema, I said, at about the 60-minute mark, that would have been my place to stop. But Raimi kept going for probably another 20 minutes, and that's why he's Sam Raimi and I'm not. Because I probably would have stopped 20 minutes early, and no one would have liked my movie. But Raimi didn't, and 41 years later, here we are still talking about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like I said, he showed how he can make a movie that people are still talking about 40 years later with as little of a budget as he had, and like his the way he handles a camera with his ideas, like those POV shots in the woods as as the Deadites or whatever you want to call them, as it's going towards the cabin. I think there's still some of the best things I've seen. The way he does that, plus the way he uses the sound effects and stuff like that, the editing is really great.
Yeah, Gore might be the only person. Eric, you're a little bit younger, but I actually saw this. I didn't see it in the theater, but I saw it once it came to cable television, in my house. And when I saw the way that he had shot the camera angles using the wheeled cart, along to run along the ground and get the shot that way, that really freaked me out when I was young. I had never seen anything like. I was like, "What the hell is that?" And I was like 12. Or something like that, and you just see this, demon like run, the mute, the score that's going on in your ear with the muffled, sort of demonic sound going on at the same time. It really was something.
I actually seen the second one first before I seen the first one. And the
Same, actually. Same.
It has a lot of that same thing going on in it. And I seen the first one a couple of years after I watched the second one. So, but the second one actually is a remake. So part 2 is actually still part 1. He just decided to reshoot his own movie.
Yeah.
Well, he had to reshoot his own movie because he didn't have the rights for it.
Mm-hmm.
He lost the rights to use the movie at all. So he had to remake the movie at the beginning of the second one. Right. But he kind of made it better in a lot of people's opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think 2 is definitely a fan favorite.
The first one to me is the only one that's actually a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
I
mean, I think we can all kind of admit that there is still a lot of comedy in the first one, but he definitely takes it like way more over the top because Bruce Campbell just makes it crazy. He does like all of his own stunts and everything in the second one, and so it was definitely there in the first one, but it takes a while for it to kind of get to that point because there's a lot of build up, a lot of like establishing characters and what are they doing here. A lot of, with the book reading, which I think is still one of the most iconic things ever. And also looking at the book at how iconic it is. And then just the wacky Deadites at the very end and how like, they're spewing like oatmeal pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
Chopping off limbs and just going crazy. It's great. I love it.
Mixing coffee grounds with the corn syrup for blood to give it more, and you're just like, these are shoestring budget ideas. These are things that we would come up with. This kind, to like help your kid with a science project or something like that,
Yeah, it's all on the fly,
Yeah. I think it was $355,000.
Yeah.
That he was given. Yeah. Like, he borrowed money from friends and from family, limited. I think he got some studio support for this, but very little. Casts were basically friends. Yep. The people out there filming were friends, and family, and it's like all your buddies are getting together, and we're gonna make a horror movie.
And everyone was very willing to just accept that it was a low budget movie. I know they slept on set overnight so they could shoot the next morning, and just nowadays that might get you in trouble, like just legally. It's unsafe.
I don't think too many. Well, A-list stars, maybe starving artists, would do something like that. But I'm willing to bet that on the set, people were onto the fact that this guy was onto something. Like we're doing something special, like something's actually happening here.
Yeah.
It must have been just a fantastic experience And again, you're absolutely right. They were out there in the cold, staying overnight. Raimi talked about how he liked to film, and sort of work with that misery that he was instilling in, people.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of on-set photos of them in the swamp, like up to their waist in water, with cameras and stuff. And that's got to be, it's got to be miserable with the weather, the cold, and then someone's getting sick doing that day after day after day.
Yeah. And then, they just kept at it. And then I think the majority of the shooting was finished, but then they realized they still had to do a lot of reshoots, and they came up with that, what did you call it? The fake shemp?
Yep. Shemps. He calls them fake shemps.
Yeah, fake shemps, where he would have people stand in for the other parts, that weren't actually the actors. I mean, this was, this really is college filmmaking.
Yeah, he got that term from the Three Stooges because after Shemp had died, they were still making shorts with Shemp in it, but when they had to do reshoots, they would literally shoot it from the back of someone's head, and then like Mo and Larry would be talking to them as they were Shemp. So that's where the term came from. There's the influence of the Stooges right there.
I'm going to go out on a limb. Shemp was my favorite Stooge. I love Shemp.
He was great.
When they said take 2 aspirin and skip, and he started... When he said take 2 aspirin and skip, and he starts jumping rope, I was like in tears every time I saw that. Hold on a second. We got a comment here from 8-Bit Ray. The last 25 minutes of Evil Dead were masterful editing and cinematography. I don't think there's any argument there. There's absolutely no gloss in this. There's nothing glossy. I mean, they weren't working on story.
No,
the cast, the characters are largely throwaway characters. There's no development in any traditional sense or anything like that. What he was seen to be working on was cinematography and, audio video. Just the audio and just overloading you with sounds.
Yeah, I think that Sam Raimi really tried to focus on having fun, with his buddies and stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Trying to create something that at least looked good. Maybe the story wasn't all there, but I definitely don't think that was his main focus.
I think that definitely makes it more likable, knowing they kind of enjoyed themselves. Maybe not the whole swamp thing, but
yeah. I feel like if you're with people that because he did rely on people that he knew, that probably, even though you were miserable, you were probably having fun together, trying to create something.
Oh yeah, miserable together.
I guess.
It's just you and your friends making gallons of blood that you're gonna throw at the wall. Sounds fun to me.
And yet,
chopping up bodies and.
All right, so here's a question: do you consider this to be a scary movie? Because I sort of do. Because I still have that sort of recollection from when I was 12. And the sensory overload. It doesn't give you any room to back away. It never slows down.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those you'll have an uneasy feeling if you're watching it, say, in your living room in the dark. That's really going to help it because it starts out really good, it building the tension. One of my favorite scenes is his use of sound when they pull up to the cabin and all you hear is the bench, boom, boom, on the side of the cabin, and it just that's like a foreboding, the doom that's going to come to these 4 people.
He comes up to the door to open it and the swing stops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it definitely has its scenes where it's definitely an uneasy feeling. I guess
especially when you get to the tree scene, that's very uneasy too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, because it's just you hadn't seen anything like that before.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
it's inspired a lot of things since.
it's kind of awful. Hold on, 8-Bit's here, and he says Raimi was chain smoking 3 packs a day, 3 packs in one shoot during the filming of 2, having a blast. Yeah. So does anybody say that this movie is just not scary? Because it has huge comedic elements. It almost falls into a horror comedy, but unlike a lot of horror comedies who end up being more comedy than horror, there's actually. It's a little scary, I would say.
Some scary parts, yeah.
It's definitely a horror film. I think it leans way more horror than comedy. I think it leans more comedy once you start going to 2. Because this one, like we're just saying, with the tension build up, because there's a lot of tension and a lot of just like what the hell is going on in this film, you know, compared to number 2. It's like you're kind of just knowing what you're getting into within the first like 10 minutes. It's like, okay, this is going to be a ride, but it's going to be funny.
Yeah, if you're comparing the trilogy, the first one is a scary movie. It's you know, because horror movies they do have comedy, and then when you get to two is just batshit crazy. You know what I mean? And then by the time Army of Darkness is, we're in, you know, Looney Tunes land. So this is the only one that I think is a pure horror movie.
Because Bruce Campbell had developed a little more and gotten more comfortable, and he had developed his comedic skills. So that's why they decided on 2 to start going a little more of that. He had developed into a little bit more of a physical comedian, so they decided to play on that a little bit more than the horror.
There's such a close. Sorry, Gore, I missed the last part of what you said. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, Campbell still hadn't found himself in the first one. He still didn't know who he was as a performer. And by the second one, he did. So that's the difference.
There's such a close connection between horror and comedy in terms of timing. You know, and Bruce Campbell's one of those guys who balances it very well between the two. You know, he can switch back and forth extremely well, you know, and he's made a career out of it now. You know, in a way, so is Raimi. How many films do you think this movie inspired?
I think it's way too many to count, really.
I mean, not just, I mean, because if you think about it, like I would say, like Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah.
Or like,
anything that has a cabin in the woods, yes, like, you know, Cabin Fever. You know, like Eli Roth already kind of explained that Evil Dead was a huge, you know, inspiration for the whole cabin scene in that. Definitely Cabin in the Woods.
I was thinking Jeepers Creepers for some reason, but I can't remember the scene that triggered that for me. But there was something like, oh, I seen that in Jeepers Creepers. I can't remember what it was. But I mean, you must just also think anybody must have been able, and this probably accounts for a vast number of the movies that were made in the 80s. Anybody thought, oh shit, I could do that too.
Yeah, that's what I saw from like people like Tarantino, where he saw this on VHS and he said, "Oh, I could make a movie too." And it's not directly inspired by Evil Dead or Evil Dead 2 because, you know, he didn't make horror movies, but he still got inspired that Sam Raimi could just pull this out of nothing, pretty much.
Yeah. I don't understand the point necessarily of the cabin movies. Well, anybody like I don't see the appeal of going out into the middle of the woods in a fucking cabin and, you know, like just hanging out and like, no, like, you know, I mean, it's gonna go wrong. Something's gonna happen. It's gonna be cold or something, you know. It's just gonna be, you know, somebody's gonna get into a fight or something. I'm like, yeah, every time, because I used to have a lot of friends that used to love to go camping, and I'm like, yeah, I'll see you when you get back. Thanks. I'll be on my couch, you know, in the air conditioning. You guys have fun, you know, with your mosquito bites or whatever the hell it is you do. We're going to go fishing and drink beer. I'm going to drink beer right here on my couch. Thank you.
Well, like in Evil Dead, the fact that this cabin had a fucking skeleton key should have been a red flag. You know?
Yeah.
You know, the place is falling apart. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hell of a thing. The over-exaggeration. I mean, there's also a lot of overacting. Like this occurred to me. Like this could have almost been like a silent film. Like with you know, because like if you've ever watched, like we've covered Nosferatu and we've covered Phantom of the Opera here. You know, and the actors in their attempt to make up for the fact that they don't have any dialogue or like being overly dramatic. And there's those scenes in the beginning. I mean, this movie starts off where they're having a fucking sing-along. You know, and like I just watched the remake to prepare for tomorrow night show, and I'm like, yeah, there's no fucking sing along in this movie. All right,
no, that one's like,
but you know, they're just having a la 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 la, and then all of a sudden the wheel whips out of the guy's hand, and you see Bruce. I think it's Bruce Campbell. He goes like this, you know, and it just freezes with like his. And I'm like, oh my god. You know, these over exaggerations, and I'm just like, jeez.
Well, okay. that probably also had a lot to do with the fact with how young and inexperienced Raimi was as a director too.
Yeah.
Say that again.
I said I think a lot of that probably has to do with how young and inexperienced as a director Raimi was. You know, with the way the actors were acting.
Oh yeah, but somehow it works.
Yeah.
Like, even with the eye rolling. believe I saw this today. I had to watch this today, so believe me, my corneas almost detached from all the eye rolling I was doing during this fucking movie. I'm like, really? Am I doing this again? Okay, it's horror canon. You got to do it. It needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, even with that, you're just like, okay, yeah. I mean, it works. Hold on a second. We got the tree scene was edited in every country but America and Italy.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
John K. Alvarez in the house tonight. He says, I first saw this movie. I was in college with a bunch of frat boys. After it was over, we were sober, and someone yelled, someone get a rom-com. Yeah, it was a scary movie. Are we going to touch on the publicity for the film between King's endorsement and the ambulances outside the theater? That's right. Yeah, King did. Did King gave the nod to this, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you guys maybe know a little bit more about it than I do?
Well, I don't know too much. I don't know what he said, but back in '81, if King endorses your horror film, I mean that's as good as you can get.
That's a gold standard, yeah.
Exactly. Not just for his books, but the adaptations that have already happened too.
Yeah.
What'd you say, Gore?
It seemed like he said, I don't remember exactly, but it seems like he said something about the scariest movie he'd ever seen or something like that.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I remember seeing this, and I'm just like, what the hell is going? Because, like, even if you watch a movie like The Exorcist, and we talked about this, there's downtime in that film. There's downtime when you're talking to Kinderman, or or Father Karras is talking to Chris McNeil, or you pick the scariest movie you can think of. There's downtime. There's none of that here. It just keeps going and going, and once it starts, it never stops.
You don't catch your breath.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. You never catch your breath in this movie, and so you can feel sort of overwhelmed. I was thinking of the last 15 minutes of House of a Thousand Corpses.
Mm-hmm.
If you've seen that, and I remember going to the theater to see that with my friend Meg, who's no longer with us, and I walked out of the theater, and I literally remember that my equilibrium was off. Like I felt a little off, like a little, like shaky, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And I'm like, there was just so much that Zombie was trying to shove into those last 15 minutes. Into that house where you get to see Dr. Satan and everything like that, except that Raimi did it for 4 times as long.
Yeah.
Or at least for like the first 20, maybe 15 minutes, not so much. But then Raimi did it for over an hour. And so, yeah, I mean, I imagine that there would be, people who are very unsettled going into the theaters, not seeing anything like this before.
I think I also remember that. I think during when he was in college, I think he made a short film that was kind of his way of getting to this film. I forget.
Yeah, and I can't remember what the name was.
Into the Woods.
But he did
Into the Woods.
Yeah, so he pretty much already made this as like a short film for like his class and whatnot. So he kind of already had some of the groundwork. So he was just kind of feeding off that. So I think that's also something to take note there. That it was kind of born while he was in school with all his friends.
Yeah, Campbell. He had Campbell in that student film as well.
Yep.
Yeah,
and Campbell they've been attached to ever since.
Yep.
Yeah, they were
Bruce
childhood
is somewhere,
friends.
Sam is somewhere, and vice versa.
Well, I think that they were childhood friends. So they knew each other before all this, and he said every 5 years or so he'll give Bruce a call. He's like, "What is it now?"
Yeah.
He's like, "We're going again," and he's like, "Okay, just tell me where I got to be there."
It's like, with every Marvel movie, you would look for Stan Lee.
Yeah.
Every Sam Raimi movie, you got to look for, even if it's the very end of Darkman for like 2 seconds, you're looking for Bruce Campbell. You know what I mean?
Or
He
even
was
like
great.
Maniac Cop, how Sam Raimi is being a reporter in that movie, but Bruce is the star.
Yep.
It's great.
Hold on a
always
second.
there.
We got King was shown a screener of the film, and they slapped his name all over the posters. If it wasn't for the King endorsement, Evil Dead never makes it overseas. The most ferociously original horror film of the year. Stephen King in a review for Twilight Zone magazine. So yeah, back in 1980 and 1981, that is, that's as good as it gets. And you're thinking you're coming off of a year where the year before you've had movies like The Shining.
Yep.
Very polished. A very polished. Yeah, there you go. A very polished kind of horror, going on. You're coming off movies like The Changeling, which is even a bit more highbrow, but still a fantastic fucking horror movie.
Yep.
And then the next year, this guy just comes out of nowhere and just punches a hole through all of that and just does it the exact opposite way. You would think that after coming off The Changeling and The Shining especially, that everybody would be trying to imitate Kubrick. But here comes this kid who's just like, no, we're going right. You're going left, no problem. I'm going right, and I'll see you when I get there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's like part of his inexperience showing. Like, he's young, he's trying to find himself. I don't even think he was probably even thinking of Kubrick at that time. He was just going to be like, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to make. I'm, 20 years old.
Yeah.
I'm going to go my own way. This is going to be my thing.
Not that he even could copy Kubrick because he didn't have the means, but
Right.
this is probably the best for him at the time. And it's probably what they all wanted to do. And that's why people like it, because you can tell that it's truly original and it's close to everyone's heart.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if you see something like Drag Me to Hell, it's still extremely raw.
Mm-hmm.
That's it's 2009 or something like that. So, I mean, almost 30 years later, he's still making these raw, graphic, sort of gory, and granted, that movie had some downtime in between, but I mean, that sort of became his trademark.
See, that's the thing. Like you mentioned, like The Changeling and The Shining, as scary as some of those images are, it's a very clean looking movie.
Yeah.
There is nothing clean about Evil Dead once they get in that cabin and he reads those scriptures. Yeah.
At least 10.
Like what are those, the thing that, like, everyone remembers, the scene with the trees, in Evil Dead. The scene that always stuck with me is when the woman gets stabbed in the ankle with the pencil.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's an image that sticks with you, because that's something you feel.
Yeah. It's graphic. It's painful. It's unflinching.
Mm-hmm.
He breaks off the pencil.
Yeah.
The pencil breaks off in her ankle. Like, who thinks of that?
Exactly. A 20-year-old. That's true.
But it sounds like something like a third grader would think of or something. I'm going to stab you with this pencil, or something. I mean, wow. Yeah. Hold on. Raimi adored Craven and wanted that raw grittiness in his film. Hence The Hills Have Eyes poster and the Freddy glove. Yeah. Yep. Okay. I could see that. I
think in a way, also it kind of reminds me of the relentlessness of the last several minutes. Also, to me, feels kind of like it's almost feeding off Chainsaw Massacre also, because Chainsaw Massacre does that. It starts, it builds up, and it keeps on, until you know what I mean. And it's got that same chaos. Now, Chainsaw didn't have the gore because it just didn't need it.
Mm-hmm.
But in a way, to me, Chainsaw was the first one to really do that and just build up to where you just can't take it. You know what I mean? The characters can't take it. You see what I'm saying?
And it's funny because when it comes to Chainsaw, so many people swear that that's like the goriest movie ever made.
Yeah, it's like nothing.
It works very much like John Carpenter's Halloween. People swear that that's a splatterfest.
Yep.
There's almost no gore in either of those movies whatsoever. But if you were to ask someone like on the street, about those two movies, they would swear up and down.
Yep.
That it's like Saw or whatever other gory thing you can think of. But there's very
little to the imagination.
Yeah, that's effective direction and storytelling. It's fantastic stuff. So, I mean, this movie starts off, la, 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 they're all singing. And I'm just like, I remember the first time I saw this, I'm like, what? Well, no, the first time as an adult that I saw this, which was to do it for Walk the Cinema. And I'm saying, wow, look how young Bruce Campbell is.
Yeah.
He's like 22 years old or something like that. And I'm like, just how young everybody looks. And, they're driving along, and I'm like, "Wow, is he?" And just goes to show how far I've adjusted. I'm like, "Wow, is he reading a map?"
Yeah.
I mean, is that a map? I can't remember the last time I've seen a map I'm like, holy shit, that kind of thing. And it's just a weekend getaway, right? It's a weekend getaway, and they're going to go to their rented cabin, or it's not a relative's cabin or anything like that. It's like a rented cabin. Is that the case? They're staying they're staying at a cabin. But again, Raimi's already starting with that, with that trolley along the ground and the shot, as it's already zeroing in on the car. So there's already something beneath the surface that's just sort of bubbling and, looking around, and, it sort of, projects itself at the car. And that's when the steering wheel just sort of jumps out of their hand, and they almost have the accident. And one of the other shots, if I remember correctly, was when the guy goes to unlock the cabin door, and he turns around, and you just see everybody's face just kind of looking at him.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, so, yeah, it starts off at a light note, but, I mean, there's also, Raimi's sort of getting it going right from the get-go to let you know he's not taking a long time, to beat around the bush. Even though this movie, I didn't realize it was quite that long. It's about 100 minutes. It's a 100-minute movie.
Feel it, though.
No, it flies by pretty quick.
Yeah. I mean, there are things that are, I'll be honest. I have trouble sitting through all of this in one sitting. Like, I need to take breaks because, like, the sense it just gets to be, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to get up for a minute.
Too much of an overload, I think.
I'll come back to it, and I'm like, okay, I'll come back in a couple minutes, or I'm going to take the dog out for a minute, or because, like I was telling these guys before we went on, I had to watch this morning. So I'm like, oh God. Okay, I've been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, and I'm like, oh God, okay, let's go find it. And I should mention this is currently playing on Tubi. Pluto TV. It's streaming on Pluto TV for free right now. Most of the characters are throwaways, but I guess for its time, and I just saw the remake also because to get ready for tomorrow night. The book doesn't look all that. Did you find the book to be all that scary looking or anything like that? It just seems
it's
sort
more
of
gross than anything.
Yeah, it's more gross than scary.
That's
okay.
cool.
All right. And then is it Bruce? Who? Forgive me, I forgot already from this morning. Who reads from it? Oh no, they play the recording.
Yeah, I believe it's Scott that starts doing it too.
Scott,
play.
He wants to scare the girls.
Yeah, antagonize the girls a little bit, and Bruce is like, "You gotta stop! You're getting them all upset." He's like, "Nah, it's fine."
Yeah, he is an asshole.
Yeah.
Scott's just an asshole. Yeah. I don't mind that he gets. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's upsetting Bruce's sister, if I remember correctly. I think she's the one that's getting upset by the whole thing, and trying to get it to stop and whatnot.
I like the outdoor setting, all the fog. It's a great setting I remember when I first saw it again, to cover it for the purposes of a show. I thought it'd be a great werewolf
that'd be cool.
setting. With all that fog and. Huh?
Like Dog Soldiers, it's got kind of that setting feeling.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, once it starts, it never lets up.
No, and see, that's the thing. Like you talked about your sensory overload. The first movie I saw of this trilogy was Army of Darkness. So I had no idea what I was in store for. Like, I didn't even know it was the third of a trilogy. So I was wondering what the fuck I was even watching. You know what I mean? Because that movie starts, and then they're in like medieval times and all that bullshit. So when I finally found out it was part of a trilogy, I wanted to watch them all in sequence. And then when I watched, the original Evil Dead, I was just blown away how Army of Darkness could be part of a movie like this, because it's just so much. And like Gore said with the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, by the end of it, you might need a break because it's just nothing but screaming, and then this getting thrown at you and that thrown at you, and there's no room to breathe. And then once the movie's over, the camera shoots right into Ash's face. You can finally, you know what I mean? Take a breath and then wonder what the fuck you just watched.
It's like 3 different universes. All 3 of those movies are 3 completely different things, really.
Mm-hmm. Like alternate realities.
His madness trilogies and stuff. Yeah,
that's the thing. I mean, I think in discussing it now, I realize that it's the screeching. There's a lot of screaming and screeching throughout. Like there's like an hour straight. Where one of the demons or a couple of the demons or, and it's just, I don't know, maybe it just rings something in my ear that just, sort of drives me crazy.
Well, yeah, it's very unnerving because you have the one in the cellar yelling and screaming, trying to get out. Then you have the other one possessed just sitting in the doorway. And
just
you mix
laughing.
Exactly, cackling like a witch, and you just have them mixed together. It's a lot to take in.
I'll swallow your soul.
And then you got, join us.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even that. It's like, we're gonna.
It's like this antagonistic, but
it's like at this pitch that just sets something like right in my ear. It's like the world's most annoying kid.
From the school,
it's
playing at the schoolyard.
Yeah, it's a schoolyard sort of taunting kind of thing going on, and you're just like, oh man, I need a break from this. I did that several times while I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna take the dog out for a minute. Okay, I'm gonna go grab something out of the dryer. Okay, I'm gonna go see if I can get something out of the fridge because I can only take this. I can only take this in short bursts. I don't know. And maybe that's a credit to the film, that it has that sort of impact, because I can't think of another movie that I've watched that sort of makes me have that response. I mean, I've screened all of these movies, that we've done on the show so far, and that's the only one out of all of them. And we've covered some movies that are, they're pretty intense, but.
I can probably think of one movie that will probably be on the same level of this as like Dead Alive.
Yes,
that's probably one, because that's also bonkers as hell, and it does not let up. Like, I kick ass for the Lord and all that good stuff, It's just nuts.
That last half hour of Dead Alive is nonstop like this, but it's I don't know how would I say, it's not as obnoxious with the sound, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that might be the hard thing that dealing with the Evil Dead is just because the sound is so, it's a loud movie. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. And I think that's the hard thing to take in, especially if you have a loud fucking, stereo system and everything like that. You better have the remote in your hand real handy.
I don't think even amongst fans that it's something that people pop in like all the time. It's got. I think. I mean, am I wrong here? Anybody here like?
I watch it pretty periodically, but
do you really? Okay, all right.
That's just me.
Right.
There's some people that it's their favorite horror movie by far, and they it's like they live by it. I mean, there's actually some.
Okay. Hold on, we got. Let's see. Unfortunately, the cabin was burned down a few years back, but the foundation is still there. Okay, probably still reeling from all that screeching that was going on. all the fucking trees are dead. The time capsule they buried was dug up as well. It's on Tubi. Okay, I didn't see it. It didn't pop up on the menu when I listed for Tubi. Most things usually do. Hey, Mr. Dan's in the house.
Dan.
What's up, Dan? All right, man.
Hey.
That recording is playing a big role in the new game. It's what he plays after he shuts it off.
Yeah.
There's an Evil Dead video game, isn't there?
Coming out in like 4 days. I'm excited as hell.
Okay. I watch it a minimum of 10 times a year.
Minimum of 10. Wow.
Okay. Yeah. That's okay. Well, I mean, I think I've seen it. When did we do our show? About 6 months ago?
It was for October, yeah.
Yeah, so October.
No, I think it was like December, kind of. It was
Oh,
right after
yeah.
October.
You're right.
Oh, Christmas time,
you know.
perfect timing.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was a perfect Christmas trilogy.
movie. Yeah, Deck the Halls, Joy's Yuletide.
Aaron and I just did. We did this early this year too. When did we do it? In February, I think, is when
I
we did our
believe so.
episode on
Yeah.
it.
This will be like the 4th time I've watched it this year. So
Yeah,
Is
so
it
he's
really?
already
Oh,
on
God.
track for that minimum of 10 times a year.
Okay, but that works for you, right, Aaron?
oh yeah.
Okay. Now, I mean, because it's funny because I've watched the second, the remake, the Fede Alvarez remake, and we're going to cover that tomorrow. And that's a different kind of intensity.
It's brutal.
It's a different kind of unrelenting. It's more visually unrelenting.
It's a different thing in general, really.
Yeah, it's a different movie, but like that didn't bother me at all. Like I enjoyed watching that. And I didn't need to take a break or anything like that. But for some reason with this movie, hold on, John says Evil Dead, a great stocking stuffer. So I don't know how many days till Christmas, but you could make someone's Christmas and get them that Blu-ray that they've always wanted.
Maybe if you're good,
Evil
John.
Dead. Oh Jesus! So I mean, let's put it to you this way, because for me, it's difficult to separate the last hour almost, because to me it all sort of comes together in like one big sonic boom. What sticks out to you? Let's do some round robin stuff. Dustin, pick something that sticks out to you besides getting a pencil broken off in your Achilles tendon.
What sticks out to me, I think probably the whole like claymation melting of everybody at the very end, because of how you got to remember this is very low budget, and usually when you want to shoot like claymation stuff, you have to do a lot of shooting, takes a lot of time, depending on who's doing it, with a lot of money. So that's also like one of the big things that sticks out to me, and obviously the makeup is very good in this film for also how low budget it is. But I think nothing really tops just the melting of the corpses in this film for me anyway. I love all the oatmeal like spewing and everything, but I just love watching the melting. That's like always in my mind.
Aaron, what you got?
One of my favorite scenes that stuck out to me the most is towards the end when with the projector and the light bulb and everything's just like oozing blood, and then the light bulb starts exploding, the projector dies out, and he's just like, you just see the panic on his face. Like that's probably one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie, honestly.
Okay. All right. Walk to cinema. What do you guys got? Anything stick out to you?
I don't really think of a scene, but I do like always think of the camera zooms, the camera just follows like it's the spirit itself. I always think of Bruce Campbell, obviously, because he's great, and just the amount of blood that this has.
I was gonna say the amount of blood, because I remember in our episode that we did, I was thinking if someone out there has ever calculated the amount of blood loss each character loses, and if that would be even humanly possible, that's just what I think about, because I think it's fun.
Yeah, I don't think medical accuracy was what Raimi was aiming for.
No.
Yeah, he's not passing any biology tests anytime soon. So
No.
Yeah. Gore, anything stick out to you?
Oh yeah, several things from the sound, like he's talking about, from that noise to the zoom along the swamp to the 30 to 45 minutes of it takes for everybody to die to the very last part when it splatters and it hits him in the face and he goes, "Oh God!" To the fact that the fruit seller actually, it starts in this one, actually starts and becomes like a character of the first two movies.
Wait, what does?
The cellar. I mean, remember there's one part in there where the door just flies open.
Yeah.
And then in the second one, it's definitely one of the characters of the movie.
Okay. Eric.
Oh, Mike, you know me. Sometimes I'm a sucker for a downer ending, and they didn't know that there'd be a sequel. And the fact that if, let's just say, there was no Evil Dead 2, after all that bullshit, Ash doesn't make it away. You know what I mean? That leaves a lasting impression once those credits hit. And then once you watch the trilogy, and even if you go through like the TV show, you can see why Ash is such an asshole. If you think about it, the first 3 movies together, it maybe takes place within the span of a week. You know what I mean? So that explains why he's such a prick by the time the 3rd movie comes out.
That's one shit week.
Exactly. But that last shot of, he thinks everything's done. He thinks the day is over. He's made it. And then suddenly that camera zooms right in on him. And the last thing we see is him screaming. It leaves an impression to me, at least.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely an iconic scene. Definitely.
I think it's not the Bruce Campbell that we're used to seeing. The Bruce Campbell that we're used to seeing is very confident, very composed. He's the veteran. Yeah, he's the veteran. Mm-hmm. Where everybody else is the inexperienced. And like he's just shitting his pants this whole movie.
Yeah,
pretty much. Everybody
he stands in the corner when Scotty's killing the first demon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's funny because any one of those people could have been Ash.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it didn't necessarily have to be Bruce Campbell that survived. It could have been any of them because none of them were established names.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have been acceptable because back then you wouldn't have known the difference. Yeah, it's just it almost seems at the time seems randomly. You didn't know about the relationship between Raimi and but when they're in the car together, at no point does anybody in the film ever get off the back foot. They're constantly reeling. They're constantly trying not to die. At no point does the good guy get to take a step forward or anything like that. It's just it's one of those kinds of movies.
Yeah, no one's a hero.
Yeah, yeah, and because they're I don't know that I'm invested in anybody necessarily because they're all just kind of throwaway characters. So you're almost just kind of waiting to see what fucked up thing is going to happen next, and that's kind of the extent of it. That's kind of the extent of my investment in the whole thing, which I'm not saying that as a knock, but it's just, you're just, okay, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next?
Yeah, because even the characters that are supposed to be caring about the characters in the movie don't really care. Like, I feel like Ash has a sister and his girlfriend there, but he really only focuses on his girlfriend sometimes, and he's just like, oh, my sister.
Yeah, I mean, Ash isn't a likable character. What's the other guy?
Scott.
Yeah, he's just a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't mind that he gets killed at all or anything like that. And it's just it's an odd fucking movie, man.
Ash actually, to begin with, he's kind of playing 3 different. He's got 3 different responsibilities. He's a boyfriend. He's trying to take care of his girlfriend. His sister gets possessed first. He's trying to help her. He tries to help her escape. He tries to take her somewhere. And then he's trying to deal with this dickhead friend of his that's saying, fuck everybody else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's going, I'm not fuck everybody else. We got to help him, Scott. Scott's like, fuck them. I'm surviving.
Yeah, didn't he try
like the father of the group?
Scott's like the first one to leave, isn't he?
He's definitely trying to. He's like, hey, man, that's your girlfriend. Fuck her. I'm getting out of here.
Yep.
Yeah, and he doesn't make it very far, and then he's like, "You're not going to leave me, are you, Ash?" Within like 5 minutes, he's crying. Within like 5 minutes, you're not going to leave me here, are you? That's what this movie is. I mean, it's like a bag of cats. It's like you threw 6 cats in a bag and you just swung it, and then you just threw it, at somebody. Oh, what the hell is that? I've hosted 107 of these, and I have a hard time talking about this because it's hard to pick. It's so incoherent. The whole fucking structure is just so fucking incoherent, and I guess that's the point. I guess that's the point. Because I just saw it this morning, but I couldn't really tell you what I fucking saw. It's just it's somebody said it earlier. It's fucking chaos. It really is. It's like a bag of cats. Like somebody just took a fucking bag, threw like a bunch of cats in like a laundry bag, and then just spun it. And you're, what the hell did I just see?
Just gonna go on for the ride.
There's something about it that's infectious, though, isn't there? I mean, have you decided if you dislike it or not yet?
I don't dislike it, but I don't like it, but I don't dislike it, and I have immense respect for it. And like
Watch it another 8 times. And
that's
then get
probably
back
not
to
going to
us.
happen. Not in this life, but
It's like part of you almost wants it to get even more fucked up, though. As you're watching it.
Yeah, it's like, it's. I don't know. It's like when you've had too much to drink. It's like one of those kind of like you're like, oh yeah. That was and it's just.
What I do like because I said I saw Army of Darkness first. It is neat seeing how Ash started out because everyone now knows the Ash character as this wisecracking guy who with a sawed-off shotgun, who flips it around like the fucking Terminator does. You know what I mean? This badass goof. You know what I mean? But when you go back to the first one, he was kind of a scaredy cat named Ashley. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's not Ash, he's Ashley in the first one. And that's credit to Bruce. You know what I mean? Like Gore said, by part 2, he did find himself. And then by Army of Darkness, it's all balls to the walls. He knows what he's in. And, there's a reason why.
The character a bit.
Mm-hmm. And there's a reason why he's got such a huge cult following. And he knows his shtick and he runs with it. And I was this close to seeing him a handful of years ago. He was in between 2 theaters, mine and then the one like 100, miles away. And I'm just like, damn it. Of course, we had to lose. But
I was very close to meeting Bruce Campbell too, and I had to unfortunately skip out because of work, which sucked.
I don't think. Well, I mean, who knows? I mean, the summer's coming, the cons are coming. This time, August of last year, I'm here in New Jersey, so we had Monster Mania in Cherry Hill, and those had some pretty big names. Brad Dourif was there. I didn't get a chance to see him because it was 5 hours long, the line. Danny Trejo was there, another 5-hour line. But I did get to meet some cool people. So who knows who's going to be on this year's rotation, But I mean, 41 years later, Raimi still in the headlines, still relevant. And it's rumored that he did this so that he could get in on the next Spider-Man movie. Like that there might be another Raimi Spider-Man. So that would be interesting.
I would not object to that.
No. I loved his Spider-Mans. I thought that they were great. Those were good. The third one wasn't so hot, but I mean, what are you going to do?
I didn't think it as bad as after you let it sit for like 10 years. I don't think it's as bad as you remember seeing it in theaters. But
I really haven't seen it in a long time. But yeah,
one thing you got to say about Raimi is you see where he starts here, and he's made a lot of good flicks, and not just in the horror genre. Like Darkman, that's a great superhero movie.
Yeah.
I like A Simple Plan a lot.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I thought Drag Me to Hell was a great return to horror, especially, that ending. That's something that sticks with you, too.
Yeah,
so,
we covered that, yeah. We covered that. That's a great movie to watch. I know that after this, he said he would, and I'm talking about Spider-Man, so now I'm about to say something that contradicts that, but he was quoted as saying, he wouldn't mind getting back to smaller films like A Simple Plan. Or things like that.
Back to his roots, I'd like that, yeah.
Yeah, and he even talked about another dark. It's been on Twitter a little bit, so you take it for what it's worth. But the possibility of coming back for another Darkman, Liam Neeson now coming back, that would be cool to see.
I'm all for it, man. I mean, you can watch Darkman on Shudder right now. They have all the films, and it's great. If you haven't seen Darkman, you need to. You need to, because that was him getting into superhero movies, right before Spider-Man. So you can see all that influence right there, and it's great. It's a good movie.
So the second movie just becomes a more polished version of the first, not as raw and a little more comedic. And then the third one just turns into almost an action film.
Yeah, it's like an action film, like mixed with cartoon. If you ask me.
I love when he has all the mini ashes and everything. That was so good.
Like the whole Gulliver's Travel stuff.
Yeah.
Army of Darkness is definitely really, really fun, but it's also super separate from Evil Dead.
And then
they're completely different.
Yeah. And then in 2015, he comes back with the Star series, Ash
Which is
versus the
great,
Evil
by the
Dead.
way.
I love the TV series.
I got through most of the first season, but I was overseas, so I wasn't having direct access to it. I may have to catch up on that.
I think you need
It's
to
worth
revisit
it.
it. Yeah,
it's so good.
See, what would be interesting, and maybe this is another thing too, and maybe that's what Ash versus the Evil Dead is where the technology catches up maybe to what Raimi's vision is.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, because Raimi directed the pilot episode too.
Okay. And he held a lot of producing rights, didn't he?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's definitely got his influences on it. So that might be something I'm interested in seeing. I'll see if I can dig it up somewhere. It's probably on Netflix or something like that.
I'm sure, yeah, and if you want to, I'm sure you can find it. The complete series. It's only 3 seasons. You probably find it real cheap on Amazon, probably $10 or less.
Used copies or something like that.
It's worth it though. It really is. It's really good.
All right. Hold on. We got a couple more comments. 8-Bit is still here. He says it broke all the rules, and very few films could break the mold like The Evil Dead. Yeah, that's absolutely true. The Evil Dead lasts 25 minutes. Yeah, and you don't resume normal brain function until the credits. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Army of Darkness is a fantasy adventure. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Originally another movie Raimi pitched. Okay, fair enough. So, I mean, my apologies if I've been a bad host for this. It really is.
No,
it
not at all.
really
No,
is no, but I mean, for me, it is a difficult movie to put to put my finger on. And to say, well, okay, and then this happened and this, because like I said, I literally got up this morning and I'm like, oh shit, I better go find this movie. Because, I'm hosting a fucking show on it tonight. And 90 minutes later, I'm like, what the hell did I just watch? And it was the second time in 6 months that I watched it. I'm like, what the hell did I just watch? So yeah.
Everything all at once.
Huh? Yeah.
Everything all at once.
Yeah, that's an extremely accurate way of putting it. Yeah, everywhere all at once. Without question.
I can't see how it would be overwhelming though. For sure.
Yeah, and that's just me. That's just me. I guess everybody's got a film like that. They're like, oh God, I need a break from this.
Oh, definitely.
Like but I guess this one is mine. So, I mean, is there anything anybody wanted to touch on before we I
feel like we kind of went over everything, like at least all like the main points in this film. I mean, like, yeah, obviously it's overstimulating. It's a very dirty movie. You feel dirty watching it. Like you got to take like 10 baths.
Yep.
Obviously it breaks all the boundaries, like we were saying, and it kind of like pioneered like indie filmmaking even like till today. I don't think anybody has really made anything on the scope of this though, for how just ridiculous it is. I would like to see someone try to do something this ridiculous in this day and age with the technology that we have now, and just see what sticks and what doesn't, and just throw it all at the wall. I'd love to see something like that. To. What's that?
Just see what level they can be taken to.
Yeah, exactly. Just I want to see something really crazy.
The closest I've gotten to, again, like what Zombie did with House of 1,000 Corpses.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. Can anybody think of anything that's come close in the past? That's 20 years though. It's been 20 years since Corpses. Can anybody think of anything in the past 20 years that's really just thrown everything at you?
Not off the top of my head, but there might be like one thing. But
the remake is sort of. I mean, the remake really kind of goes for it. It really does. What Fede Alvarez tried to do there, he clearly wasn't screwing around, and I think he took it seriously. But it's just a different kind of movie.
It's not sensory overload. The remake is. The remake is not sensory overload. You have a lot of shit happening in that last act, but it's not bashing you in the face with it. In my opinion, you have
sounds and screeching and
I thought that it was, and we'll get into this tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't. It wasn't hitting you on the sonic level.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Visually, it hit you very hard.
Mm-hmm.
The face carving.
With the face carving, or when she swings the crowbar and snaps all that guy's fingers off to the. You're like, oh man, this is. Or when she's trying to stab him with a needle, the syringe, and you're just like, oh man. So yeah, I can't think of too many movies that have, that have done this. So this is a lot different than Personal Shopper, guys.
Yeah.
It's a lot different than Personal Shopper. I was just talking Personal Shopper, an avant-garde French film, but no, I got to come down here and talk Sam Raimi. All right. I suppose this is as good a place as any to close it out for tonight. 8-Bit Ray said, sorry for hijacking the show, guys. No, come on. Come back anytime. You're more than welcome.
We love the interaction.
Yeah. It's all good, and because it gives the conversation, new directions to go in and things to talk about. So there you go. And I'm usually a lot more able to, put my finger on things, just not with this movie. So, hey, there you go. I guess that's it for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night as we wrap up the Evil Dead double feature with Evil Dead, the sequel made by Fede Alvarez that I saw a long time ago in a movie theater in another part of the planet, and I was like, what the fuck? Because I had no expectations, and I was extremely impressed by what they did there. And I really like this movie. I own it on Blu-ray. It's great. It's playing on Tubi. Gore, you'll be back for that tomorrow.
Yep.
Eric, you're back
sir.
for that tomorrow. Bill will be here for that tomorrow. If anybody else would like to jump in, let me know. We'll be here at the same time to talk some more Evil Dead. But for now, that will be all. My thanks to Dustin and Aaron from the Barrens Hideout podcast. I'll get you guys some more films that are coming up. I know, Dustin, you said you were looking at coming back on. So if you guys had a good time, I'll talk to you again about it.
For sure, man.
We'll get you back in.
Yeah.
And likewise for you.
Yeah. Absolutely. For Eric, thanks again. Always good to have you on here. From Internet Eric here.
You know it, man.
The Gore-Aphobe, thanks again for stopping by. We'll see you again tomorrow night. Rock and roll. And Walk the Cinema podcast. Thank you again for stopping in. We don't get to catch up often enough, but it's good when you guys are on. Real quick, while we're here, tell people where they can find your content. Let's start with pick one of you from Barrens Hideout so people can figure out where to find your stuff.
It's all you, Dusty.
Okay. Well, you can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. Good Pods is a really good place to kind of, discover other podcasts. We're on there. We release episodes every Monday for everybody. Then we have Patreon exclusives that go on Sundays. And we're actually starting to do more interviews. So we're going to be adding another show that's going to be coming out on Wednesdays. But we are a weekly podcast, and anywhere you can find podcasts, you can listen to us. And
we just had a collab for The Conjuring. That was a lot of fun.
We did, and that episode is going through the roof right now, just so you know.
That's cool. That's cool. That was a great 2 hours talking about James Wan. That was fucking awesome. Eric, where can they find your stuff?
When I'm not here hanging out with Mike, once or twice a week, you can Google, hey, Internet Eric here. I'm on all the social media platforms there. Mainly I'm on YouTube making a video whenever I get a fucking chance with work and stuff like that. Recently, me and the wife we're going through the Harry Potter films, so that's fun, something for her to collaborate with, which I'm very surprised. I'm really enjoying. And then I'm always hanging out with Gore over on his channel. I'll be doing that in a few days. And per his request, the next horror franchise I'm going through will be Phantasm. So
nice.
I'm very excited. Never seen a Phantasm film, so I'm very excited.
Oh, you're in for a treat, man.
All right, Gore, tell them where to find you, man.
Mostly on YouTube. I have several different shows I do. I do podcasts. I do pickups. I do collections. And I advertise that on Instagram and Twitter. Twitter is something new I've been getting into, advertising on there and doing that in general. And just now, actually, for the first time, last couple of days, actually did a couple of retweets. So,
okay, very nice.
He's getting there, folks.
Yeah.
I hate Twitter. I fucking hate Twitter, man.
And that's why I love Gore-Aphobe. You know,
Fucking tank.
that fucker doesn't sugarcoat nothing.
His word, man.
All right, you guys, Walk the Cinema. Where can they find your stuff?
We're Walk the Cinema podcast on every podcasting platform and YouTube. We just covered all the Oscar Best Picture nominees. We just went into a bunch of Federico Fellini films. So, there's a lot of content there every Monday, new episodes too. So that's pretty much it.
Very cool.
Okay, very cool. So check them out tomorrow. I'll put everybody's link to the channel in the description so people can find you on there. I'm going to start doing that. All right, my thanks to everybody here tonight. We'll be back tomorrow with some more fucking Evil Dead because, that's just how we're rolling here this week. And everybody, stick around for a second, all right? And for the rest of you, thanks for everybody in the comments. Dan, Eric Bitray says he loves you.
Aww.
And John says, great show. Everybody, we'll be back tomorrow, and have a good night. Peace.
Cheers.